there is this cultural festival, this Yoruba festival happening in Nigeria as we're transing, same, into Culture Corner. Hello, Kango. Hi. Trans. I'm trying to do the like Gen Z heart these days. And someone was saying like a millennial, they were like, when I do this, I feel like I'm throwing up gang signs. And I'm like, honestly, same. I'm like, I mean, cool, but also I'm used to this. Have you transitioned into the Gen Z heart?
The historic warrior families of Ijebuland go on horseback parade at the
Oh,
annual Ojude
cute.
Oba
This one.
festival. For
Wait, am I doing
Omoyemi
that right?
Fumilola, seeing her
I don't know
7-year-old
if I've ever
daughter
even
Ire
tried this
ride with the
before.
family for the
Clearly.
first time is history preserved.
It is amazing because
That's
the
a cute
legacy
one.
continues. Our own fathers passed down to us, and I'm passing down to my daughter. And she will pass on to our own daughters and daughters to come. Are you super excited?
It has been a long journey for mother and daughter in preparation for this year's festival. Omoyemi worked for months with Ire for her debut, giving her all the support to carry on the family's age-long practice that started over 130 years ago.
Am I doing this
You have
right?
something that you are
Absolutely.
not showing your daughter or your son.
That's
When you are
usually how it
gone,
goes for me,
there
I
will be
feel.
continuity. So this is why we
Good to
ourselves,
see
we
you.
are already
How are you
involving our
doing?
young ones. Because when we are not here again, they will carry on the family legacy.
This year's festival transforms the entire Ijebu land into a colorful stage with thousands of people showing up in stunning traditional outfits. It's the first since the passing of the king in 2025.
Yeah.
He had presided over it for
Stunning.
65 years. There is a delay in enthroning a successor after the state.
Oh, is that Eeyore? Is this emo? Oh, sad. I know. You have a lot that you're dealing with. I'm sorry. To be honest, this shows like I mean, you know this about me. I'm like, oh, I'll like be part of technology slightly, but not even like investigating like most of the platforms. That's probably irresponsible of me as like a streamer. I will like be in people's chats, but I'm usually not like using emotes that often. And so people will be using things and I'm like, what does this mean? I don't know.
Government placed an indefinite suspension on the selection process,
No.
citing security
Same.
concerns, public order risks,
We're in
and
good
several
company.
petitions.
Not only here, but just like anywhere, really.
Surrounded by lots of beautiful people, all dressed up in colorful traditional attire of the Yoruba people. And although the Ijebu King is dead, this year's event honors his memory, showcases the resilience of the people, and also their drive to pass on this cultural legacy.
The festival, known as the King's Forecourt, started as an Islamic gathering after Eid, where people would pay homage to the king, called Kabiesi. But today, it's grown into something much bigger.
I'm usually
A vibrant,
fine
all-inclusive
everywhere.
cultural
I don't know if I'm
festival
fine
that
anywhere.
brings together Yoruba
Twitch
people.
makes me feel so old.
It's about paying homage to our Kabiyesi.
It does for me too. There are plenty of times where like younger people will come in the chat, like anyone like really below the age of 30. I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about when you're using slang. That's fine. Love that. Don't come here expecting me to use that. Plus, when I feel like older people use slang that doesn't like it doesn't feel authentic to them, it's just kind of like what's happening here? This is weird to me, but I don't know. Yeah, I'm usually like asking the chat what the fuck is going on. I'm like, what does that mean? And then they're like, oh, it means this. I'm like, okay. They're like, you're so old. I'm like, okay. I don't care.
It's about displaying the culture of
Shocking,
Ijebu.
I've
It's
made it
about
this long.
showcasing
We'll
how
count that
rich
as
and
a
how exposed
success?
Ijebu people are.
Question mark?
This Ashoke stuff. All in this, where is that?
Look at her glasses. Okay, the makeup too. Culture corner for you. Yeah, exactly. Like, what are the youth saying these days? They're like, please don't try. I'm like, I'm not going to. You're in no danger of that.
It's only all this Oba that normally wear Ashoke. And all this Oloye.
I know.
Look at the way we are able
Nigerian
to
food is so
We are giving
good.
our culture pride.
It's not
Beautiful
just about attending
clothes.
Ojude Oba. For our age group, we repair hospitals. We provide portable water for market women. So these are what our children are seeing and emulating.
You can see the Gen Zs taking over, and you can see us in our attires, how we are mixing fashion with culture. So we look forward to taking this bigger and bigger.
Although it recorded an impressive turnout, the venue of the festival was too small to accommodate the massive crowd that struggled for several hours under the scorching afternoon sun. Critics have continuously called for a change of location, but Ijebu people say it's symbolic to the festival.
The Ojude Oba Festival is under pressure to expand and adapt as it continues to attract the younger generations. However, the result of the older ones is that this cultural heritage must remain rooted in community rituals in order to maintain its originality.
Hey, there was that suggestion at the end that's talking about India's viral cockroach moment where young people are, because like the people in power, especially the Hindu nationalist, fascist people, are calling young people, working class people, especially cockroaches. And they're like, yeah, and guess what? There's a lot of us. It's like, yeah, that's pretty cool. I want to, if we don't get to that today, I did want to highlight that next week. But I love this. Just like actually like embracing our roots is a way to decolonize directly. Just like having joy in the face of all of the oppressive systems that exist, celebration. That's what they are afraid of. They, meaning the people like in the ruling class, especially colonizers. Okay, I have recently been watching more content by Afro Drumming, this creator, and I saw this video that I wanted to watch on the stream. Oldest Native American drumming video ever. Which, I don't know which tribe. Oh, Hopi tribe. The following clip is the earliest known footage of ethnic drumming. At 17 seconds long, it features Native American Sioux Haircoat, Last Horse, Parts His Hair, and 2 unidentified drummers. It is dated 1894. So the original clip is silent because of silent movies. So this music is overlaid. That looks like part of a chicken dance. The following footage is from 1894 titled Sioux Ghost Dance. It features dancers in full war paint and war costumes. super cool. Beautiful. Getting in more photography. Okay, and so the buffalo dance, ghost dance, and some of the music that's credited. Hello, Anarcho Taco. Welcome. Good to see you again. How are you doing? Today is Culture Corner, where we actively talk about decolonizing the world and exactly how you mentioned yesterday how culture comes first before political power, and that political forces are used to uh, control culture, erase culture, especially. But there's a reason why the people who are in the ruling class, the 1% colonizers, are bent on erasing references to culture and like the joy and power that we get from it. So that's part of what we do here. Just waking up. Well, good morning. If it is morning to you. I did read through your philosophy that you were writing. And yeah, there is a lot to unpack there, which is great. I love that. Taco waking up. Ah, amazing. That's not a bad thing. This is me giving you queer applause. Dense is what we do here. Not dense as in like mentally dumb, but yeah, as in like complex and good to sort through, good to unpack. It's Saturday morning in Australia. Yeah, I forget it's you're a day ahead basically. Happy Independence Day. Is it Australian Independence Day? I mean, for you? For us tomorrow? Not us. I mean, like people who are living here, but Australian Independence Day tomorrow. Oh, Independence Day because of the weekend? We are still British, apparently. Unfortunately, as we're talking about decolonizing, this is very pertinent. I mean, I wouldn't know. I don't know a lot of things about the world due to my abysmal American education. So, speaking of continuing with talking about decolonizing, I saw this video by Sherry Talks Fitness, and she has some really great content that I have been enjoying. I bet you're fine. I didn't know. I had to look it up. And then that's also why I was like, oh, the weekend. That makes sense. That could also work if you are not working on the weekends, that is. So this specifically, she was referencing, I just looked at her handle. Queen Squidward. Amazing. Shout out to England for creating the most Independence Day holidays. Yeah, truly, in the history of humanity. Yeah, those fucking colonizers. As we were talking about reclaiming culture and like that as a way of actively decolonizing. I mean, like they're very like there are mechanized systems that are imposing this type of current colonization. But like I know how you said yesterday that your family was Irish and then sent off to Australia. Do you feel like there are things within like Irish culture that like you resonate with, or like as you've like done some decolonizing yourself that you're like, oh, I like this particular food or this type of music that like it speaks to you at all? I'm curious. So this video, Cherry is talking about the differences in beauty standards that exist within like white supremacist, Eurocentric beauty standards, and then also in non-white circles where like I can attest to this of like having grown up to in Utah that is extremely white in a very colonized like white supremacist area. Kango also knows about this. And especially like being assigned female at birth and like going through puberty and seeing a very stark contrast in like the treatment of like how I would be received with people like with my hair texture getting curlier, and also how like you know like getting curves. And the for the first time in my life where I felt like I was viewed as more like beautiful and like for those things, not just like in spite of those things or trying to like appeal to whiteness. I went to Atlanta a couple of times and I was like would get compliments from some people like about my hair, like how I was like dressing myself, that I was like, people don't normally like notice these things. And I was like, directly it was because of people not coming from like this white supremacist framework actually being like, wow, this is cool. And I was like, thank you. um Also, this was like another instance of this of when my family and we went to India to visit family. Like for the first time in my life, I didn't feel like I like wasn't skinny enough for certain family members, and that there were like other like particularly like sisters that I have that have like we've all like dealt with is disordered eating, which like this is what this will get into more. Um, how like I was like complimented on like, oh, like your figure is great, and I was like, huh, this is interesting, and like feeling proud of that. And it's like both of these instances are coming from outside of a framework of the white gaze, specifically GAZE. I mean, also like gays, hi, ooh. But that was like a really good experience for me to learn of like there it's not just you. It's not just that like you are viewed as undesirable like for all people, that it's like there are all of these like frameworks that you are existing in that are inherently oppressive. Oh, 1000%. Yes, Irish are punks and rebels. Yes, I love that. There is some really great punk music that comes out of Ireland too. I like the old Irish brand of paganism, animism. Yeah. I thought I was tripping. My Aussie friend posted Happy Independence Day and she's Filipina. Oh, okay. Happy Independence Day to the Philippines. Yay! Throwing throwing out those colonizers. Maybe it's a premonition. That would be cool. June 13th in Australia, if that is an Independence Day eventually. I wouldn't put it past Kango to predict something like this. Like predicting the future. That seems to be pretty in character. Okay, enough of like me talking about all of that bullshit. Let's hear from Cherry and how she is able to actually like show a lot of really great examples of things. But call me Raven. That's so Raven. I fucking loved that show. Also how like in this moment that we're finding ourselves in this overtly fascist moment where there is white supremacy abounding and like white beauty standards abounding, it is important to be talking about how there are all of these celebrities, like especially on Ozempic, or celebrities that have a track record of having an eating disorder, but them also being praised for being so thin, that like people should not be demonized for like whatever type of body they have. So like this isn't to condemn people. This is just to talk about these larger systems that are teaching, especially young girls and especially young people like with uteruses, and like how you grow up in a very gendered way as you are socialized and conditioned to like view beauty in a particular way, that like it is very dangerous, that like a lot of these things that they will talk about in this video are things that I'm like, yes, thank you. We need to be talking about this in the public discourse, especially as there are like so many people that are looking like heroin chic with like that type of skinny. It's really scary. Ozempic is also in short supply, and it's more valuable as epilepsy meds than slimming stimulants. Yeah, exactly. And it's like it has a place, like especially for people like when they are needing it for health reasons, but also how there is like basically like from what I've heard like behind the scenes, especially like in LA, that all celebrities are basically on Ozempic. I mean, that's like painting with a broad brush, but like many celebrities are on it. And that has just become the norm, and where you like see people's bones sticking out. And like as someone who grew up in ballet where like eating disorders were like viewed as very normal, and like that's also a type of like traumatic experience that young women like and young men like growing up in the dancing world, like specifically the Western dancing world of like classical ballet, that is extremely oppressive and like very strict in trying to tell people what they should look like, where you're around mirrors all the time, and people most always not, I guess I shouldn't say always, but many people develop body dysmorphia growing up within the like Western like dance world, and that's not for no reason. Like from a very young age, there would be girls like talking about like, oh, I'm like so fat, and they're like a child, like they're 8 years old. Like that was extremely normal in like the world that like I grew up in. And that's not outside of the norm of like not even just in like the dance world. It's in many different aspects of like viewing beauty and how you are finding your worth. And that like when like I in particular like was going through puberty, like being an assigned female at birth person, being like, oh, I can't like balance as much because I'm not a stick, because I like actually have like tits and ass that are like making it so like when I'm on point shoes, I'm like not able to like balance as much. It's wild. But like even seeing the people who did not develop these types of curves, that they were elevated more than people who did have them, of like people who had even like more muscular thighs, that like muscle development was even viewed as like, oh, you have like too like bulky of muscles, you don't look like a ballerina, where you have a tiny head and you have extremely long skinny arms and legs and you have like no torso. that's like, okay, this is extremely rare of a body type to have, but also it's not an accident that so many professional ballet dancers also deal with body dysmorphia and eating disorders. For weight loss, it's just another coat method. Yeah, there are other stims that do the same thing, but epileptics can't take those stims. Yeah, and how it's like that is being taken away from people who are needing it, where like celebrities are buying it up. It's meant to be speed. I need coffee. You're like speaking about speed. I need a stimulant. uh, Power structures install insecurity to present security. Markets work the same. Yeah, exactly. Especially in this larger system of patriarchy, like cis het patriarchy as well, and ableism, that there are all of these perspectives, which like an eating disorder that's like a mental disorder, which is technically like a disability. So like eating disorders like can be considered disabilities that also are like, but that is viewed as able-bodied. And so it's like how all like why I keep talking about who is viewed as able-bodied or not. Like we need to have a larger conversation about this, that it's largely to justify these oppressive power structures, but especially when it comes to patriarchy, that it's like it's not an accident that like with the erasure of rights and like autonomy and wages and like in employment opportunities for women or people who are femme, that essentially it's like, oh no, we want to control exactly how you look, that like this is something you can buy, that this is extremely expensive, and that like you can't get to this kind of thinness unless you are starving, which is like commodifying starvation and offensive to all of these places that are like going through starvation and genocide, and also trying to like deflect, like trying to almost like have that mutate into a form of beauty, of like normalize these skeletal bodies of children that are starving and expect women to look like skeletal bodies of children. Like that comes from pedophilia. And like, can I say that? Can I say that on this platform? I don't know. But like infantilizing women, and like the concept of like removing all body hair and not embracing curves, that it really is this type of trying to have eternal youth, but specifically appeal to like being like looking underage, which is extremely problematic, clearly, and abusive. And it's like, so we have the Epstein class, the ruling class, the 1% who are controlling like the industrial war complex where they are causing starvation. They are the ones who are controlling culture, as we have been talking about, like in the beauty industry and fashion industry. And this isn't just like art because it's industry, it's things you can buy. And that's usually has to do with class. And that they also are invested in the pharmaceutical industry. So like they directly benefit from all of these different aspects in wanting to control women and their bodies, but also like it's not exclusive to just women. This is also a concept that is very ingrained in the queer community, in queer spaces, of fat phobia, like whatever that even means to be fat. And how all of this has to, like this stems from a like patriarchal colonizer perspective that is meant to continue oppression and these power structures. I was always not slim, just comfy. I love that, comfy. Of like, yeah, I'm just healthy. In my early 20s, I did 3-day benders and people were like, wow, looking good. And I'm like, wow, I'm in crisis. Yeah, although the world is. I'm glad that you can see that difference now, though. Like, there was a time where, like my parents like kicked my partner and I out when we were living with them, because we weren't going to church enough. And like eventually we like saw them at one point and reconnected, and that was like a whole thing. That's like a different story. But like I remember my dad saying to both of us like, wow, you look great. and we couldn't afford to eat. Like, we couldn't afford to eat regular meals. Like, we were not eating regularly and we're not healthy. And so, like, just this larger perspective of like, and it wasn't just them or like my parents. It was like also other people that we saw like, oh, you look great. And it's like, we don't have money to feed ourselves. Like, we don't feel great, but it's like, that's what many people experience, especially with eating disorders and like growing up in theater and being in like the public eye. Like, for like, I remember getting like a dopamine hit if like my dress would be taken in, or like a costume would have to be taken in at some point, and being like, wow, oh, like people would be like, oh, you need to eat something, and being like, I know, I'm so skinny. And it's like, that's not great. That is encouraging eating disorders. But again, it's just like, what are we actually viewing as a disorder, as a disability or a mental illness, and like someone who is in crisis, that all of this is dictated by the capitalist class. Okay, I'll stop this diatribe that I'm on and centering myself. Let's listen to this wonderful perspective.
Can I be in y'all's business for a second, and can you guys answer me?
Oh, whoops, that's probably too fast.
I promise I won't tell anybody. I'll keep my mouth shut. I swear to God. It's just between me and you. Okay, what do you guys define as fat?
Big fact about the white community and its beauty standards for white women and how it views weight on white women is that having any sort of curve, like literally a natural curve as a woman, is immediately seen as being fat.
God forbid a white woman have thighs. No, for real. God forbid a white woman have thighs.
Has anyone else noticed that white people and black people have a very different perception of skinniness? Like, what's skinny to a black person is what's fat to a white person.
The idea of a parent actively encouraging their child to eat less in order to stay thin was not something I personally witnessed growing up. With the current boom of thin was not something
I didn't pause it fast enough.
Growing up.
Pause. Okay. Trigger warning. This video contains discussions of eating disorders, disordered eating, dieting, body image, weight loss, obesity, parental comments about weight and food, and beauty standards. Viewer discretion is advised. If these topics are distressing to you, please prioritize your well-being and consider skipping this video or seeking support from a trusted professional or resource. Which I probably should have opened with
the current boom of skinny talk,
that.
It was epidemic, and every other celebrity.
Yeah. I'm glad she's bringing up these particular pictures of people as well. Like Demi Moore having been in The Substance, this movie that is all about, like, that's Ozempic. Like, beauty standards that she's just like, oh yeah, now I'm on this or whatever. Even if she isn't on GLP-1, that like this idea of like she has to look like she has a teenage body, essentially, that it has not gone through puberty yet, like all of these people for the most part, in order to be viewed as beautiful or like being skinny enough.
Seemingly showing up 20 pounds lighter than they were a few months ago. Women are finally starting to have conversations about beauty standards.
Yeah, and people are, not to keep interrupting, this will be the last thing for a bit, but especially as like Ariana Grande has been going on tour, many people are like, women just can't exist, stop talking about women's bodies. And it's like, stop using feminist language that is coming from a place of like, oh, we need to stop commodifying people's bodies, to like dissuade people from actually having a genuine conversation that needs to be had about beauty standards and the harm that happens when people are so skinny. Like on her latest tour, like there have been multiple videos of like she has a hard time standing, and it's like, who knows what's going on in her life, and like it's a dangerous activity to be even like speculating as to what's going on. But like when people are unhealthy, like we have seen so many celebrities die, basically. Like Amy Winehouse died, like she performed the night, like one night, and then the next day she died. Like that's what these people are going through, of like the exploitation that they experience, but also how like, especially talking about like these movies that young girls are seeing, like Wicked, and seeing just how skinny people look, that is viewed as like the pinnacle of beauty. It's like, that is really dangerous when like these people are not healthy themselves. And like Ariana Grande has a history of an eating disorder. Like this has been like, people have taken note of this. It has been recorded. She has talked about it before. And like, that is really sad, but also like, we need to be concerned about her health. Like, if she is experiencing these things, like, we need to have a conversation that's larger about like the exploitative practices of celebrities feeling compelled to keep like performing, being like show ponies essentially, without like honoring their health, or like being viewed as like only a commodity. That it's like it has a far-reaching effect. And like, as we have been talking about, like, culture is controlled by the 1% who have a vested interest in keeping us oppressed. Should keep chiming in. We like it and are here to hear you talk about things. Oh, thanks. I can feel a little uncomfortable. Maybe I shouldn't like share certain things. But also, like, talking about personal experiences, it's like so many things are like, people like, oh, I don't want to share this or like air this dirty laundry, I guess. But also, like, more people experience this shit than like we want to talk about. So trying to find that balance of like destigmatizing the conversation and also not like trauma dumping on everyone. So figuring that out. But thank you for the support.
More specifically, the skinny beauty standard we see taking over social media.
In the book Anti-Oedipus, Deleuze talks on desire as reproduction. So the structural incentives install the desire. Power structures reward unhealthy, then unhealthy becomes desirable. Yes, exactly. And so it's, again, like, what is viewed as like able-bodied? Is it actually being healthy? Or is it falling into like these deeply problematic ways to impose colonial oppressive systems, like through eugenics? Yeah, that is a really great reference. I haven't read that, Anti-Oedipus. I need to, though.
And what surprised me the most about this is how
That's a great
extreme the standard
recommendation.
can be, specifically for white women.
Argue skinny to white women of a certain age, especially think prepubescent. Like, if you can count the ribs here, skinny. If they don't have a lot of breast tissue, skinny. Essentially, once the like actual curves of a woman come in, that woman is no longer considered skinny. And especially now, because we are going back, it feels like we're going back in time, going back to the 90s. I thought we already did this with women taking up less space, but we're back to it. So you can see it in examples of like 90s Kate Moss, Ariana Grande on the Wicked tour. Demi Moore right now is being praised because she's thin but still has muscle. It's wild.
An example of this extreme expectation is the fact that the singer Tate McRae is being called fat on TikTok.
White people, can I be in y'all's business for a second? And can you guys answer me? And I promise I won't tell
Ooh,
anybody. I'll keep my mouth shut, I
yes,
swear to
please
God. It's just
do.
between me and you.
Yeah, you can
Okay,
message
what do
me
you
in
guys
the
define as
Discord.
fat? I need to know, because every single time I see a video of Tate McRae, it's always white women in the comments of every
Thank you.
demographic saying, I love how she's not skinny. Like, I love how she...
Yeah, I'm really glad that she's talking about this. Tate McRae is also like very skinny. She's extremely athletic. And also, like, what even is skinny? Like, who is defining this? This is how you know, like, along with race, that is a social construct that is based off of like these oppressive structures that are deeply colonial.
She's so confident in her body, even though she's not skinny. To me, Tate McRae just has an athletic build. You can tell she works out. You can tell she takes care of her body. She has to sing. She has to dance. She's touring all the time. She probably works out a lot and does a lot of like very intense exercises for like breath control and stuff. So to me, she just looks like she works out.
And she's a great dancer
to every
too.
white girl I've ever talked to, and to every white girl I've seen in the comment section, they're like, Tate McRae is big. Like, she's big. She can, like, to some people she might even be considered fat. And I'm like, in what world would Tate McRae be considered fat?
I've also seen this on videos of Addison Rae. I think she has like gotten skinnier as time has gone on, but like her just like wearing some shorts and people being like, thank you for letting me feel like proud of my thighs. And it's like, she has muscle, but it's not even like she has like really curvy thighs, which like are extremely beautiful and love that. But it just goes to show that like the very limited amount of like kinds of bodies that are viewed as beautiful in media, or like who gets elevated to these top positions in media.
Regardless of whether you're a fan of hers or not, I think most reasonable people can agree that Tate McRae is not fat, yet there are still people who perceive her body as too large. And I think that's what really highlights how extreme some of these beauty standards have become. Women are finally starting to have conversations about the pressure they faced for years, not just from social media or celebrity culture, and not even from their own peers, but from the people who raised them. You heard me, from family members.
This topic about white women beauty standards and specifically body standards is very, very interesting to me because I unfortunately have a lot of up close and personal experience with it. I grew up in like the south side of Chicago, almost the suburbs, like Beverly, if you know, you know. But the most important thing here is that I had lunch with these girls every single day for almost a full decade, and it starts so young. I distinctly remember this one time this girl had like a baby bell cheese and she was nibbling on it, taking the teeniest, tiniest bites. And we were all like, what's going on? And she was just like, my mommy tells me to take teeny tiny bites so I make it last as long as I can. It's a baby bell cheese, like it's literally this big. You don't need to nibble on that. And so flash forward to today, I work in the service industry and I see a microcosm of this every single day. Keep in mind, I work at a steakhouse. There will be a family of 4 come in, they're a white family. The dad and the son will always get steaks. The mom and her daughter are splitting.
Media is a superstructure, so we kind of can't know the substructure.
So when I see
where it's very amorphous, and that's intentional.
Caesar salad. The Caesar salad doesn't have any protein. It's not.
It's
not
it's
like
creepy.
A salad at all. It's a starter salad.
Especially with like this idea of like wanting grown women to look like girls, like young girls, is very problematic.
Your brother is right in front of you gobbling down steak and potatoes. And there was this one family. It was actually so sad. Like, the girl really wanted a steak, and like her brother got a steak, and her dad got a steak, and she asked her mom if she could have a steak, and then her mom literally said, "No, you don't need to eat all that." And then she turned to her dad, and she was like, "Dad, I really want like a steak. Like, I don't know why she's not letting me get a steak." And it turned into an argument to the point where I had to step away for a minute to come back. So I come back, and then they're still kind of arguing, and so I'm like, "Hey guys, did we figure it out? Like, gonna get a steak?" And I have no idea what they said to her, but she just like looked back and forth between her dad and her mom, and she's like, I'm like, "Do you want to?"
That's also very white behavior to like be having this argument and then making it a problem for everyone else in the area. Every movie is Barbie plus Action Man hero and US military. I mean, honestly. And it goes to show as well, like, how completely absurd and nonsensical and like the constantly moving goalpost of what it means to be like the ultimate kind of beauty, because of when Margot Robbie was cast as Barbie in the Barbie movie, people were like, especially coming from men, they were like, she's not beautiful enough. She's not beautiful enough. That's like, at the time, she was considered like the beauty. It's not an accident that she has blonde hair and blue eyes and is very skinny, or like white skinny, especially. But like even now that we're seeing with like all of this like quote unquote like transvestigating of Erica Kirk and Sydney Sweeney that's happening with all of these like idiotic fascists, where they're like, oh, like they have like too large of necks and stuff, and it's like, that's so deeply transphobic. I mean, that's the intention, but like why like transphobia is based in misogyny is based in like patriarchy, which is based in like this colonized idea of a gender binary, that there can't be any sort of like gender expansiveness, and to like control people's appearances is to control their ideas about themselves, their ideas about other people, and that like they are commodified, that people can buy a certain kind of beauty, especially as like I mentioned before, with Erica Kirk specifically, like as people are gaining more power, especially these white women in these fascist spaces, that like if they are being viewed as having too much capital, too much power, that like a lot of these things are strategically done to like take women down a peg or a few, so that they are not getting to the point where they actually have the equality of male power. White male power, specifically.
And the mom was pissed. The mom was literally fucking mad that this little girl got a steak.
The behavior that the creator and the women she was describing in that TikTok is very foreign to me. Growing up in the islands, it's highly unusual for a parent to encourage their child to restrict their food intake for a parent's reason. The idea of a parent actively encouraging their child to eat less in order to stay thin was not something I personally witnessed growing up. So naturally, after seeing that video, I did what everyone else did. I went straight to the comments. And when I say I was shocked by the number of women sharing similar, and in some cases, even worse experiences from their childhood, and I'm gonna show y'all the most heartbreaking ones in this video. My parents started calling me fat by 2nd grade. I was 8, gave me the most awful relationship with food, and I've been on a yo-yo cycle with my weight all my life. We did keto together because I had just hit puberty, and I thought I looked fat. I was 12. I have never had a normal relationship with food. While my mom never
Yep.
made me count calories, her bad habit of being extremely negative towards her own body made me do the same on my own. I am in my
Yep, this
30s
is
and I
something
still
I
struggle with loving my
experienced.
body as it is and accepting that I will gain more weight as I get older. So true. My mom taught me how to track my calorie intake when I was 7. I was a very small
Mm-hmm.
child, but I was an athlete, so I ate a lot. My mom constantly commented about how much I ate and that it would catch up with me when I'm older. My mom
Or
has
like
not stopped talking about losing her baby weight since my
all of the like aunts in my family, especially like the white aunts that are like, oh, like I'm only gonna have a sliver of cake. I'm only gonna have like a bite of this. Or like on the weekend, sometimes my mom would be like, for dinner, I'm just gonna have popcorn and a soda. So like I thought, therefore, it was acceptable for like lunch in high school and in junior high to like have a Pop-Tart and a soda. Like that's bad, especially being like as active as I was. And it's like I'm sure I'm dealing with health consequences from that and that they are just like a ticking time bomb, but like that's not an isolated experience. And like kids pick up on this shit. Like I remember like specifically my dad, before we would have like his, like he still does this, like his like yearly physical, he would binge like and be like, okay, so before a month before my physical I have to go on a diet. So like in all of like Christmas time growing up Christian. Hello Aliana, welcome. um how are you doing? But like during Christmas time, you'd be like, oh, I'm gonna like eat as much as I want. And then like in February, when he would have his physical, like the month of January, sometimes he would just eat like cans of like green beans like all day long. And I'm like, that's bad. Like that's so much sodium. That's not even that nutritious for you. But also like that kind of like what they're talking about, this yo-yo effect, like that's really bad for your body. Like your body is like you're starving it and then, or like you're binging and then you're starving. It's like that's also very bad for your mental health. But I'm okay. I'm gonna eat pho. Oh, pho's so good. I love that.
sister was born. It's been over 2 decades. My mom would constantly mention that she had 6 kids and told me I
That's
looked like I
making
was the
me
one who had them instead.
want
Like, girl,
some.
thanks. I'm also 10 years old. My dad called me
I
fat
do
when I
have
was a freshman
Takis
in high
today
school.
though.
I was a size 4. I still struggle
I
with
fucking
eating
love
disorder and body
Takis.
dysmorphia to this day. My mom used to make me drink a bunch of water.
Which, by the way, when I was buying these Takis at the store, I was also buying like some Coronas with this. And this white guy who was checking me out immediately, like I'm not of like indigenous American descent or like commonly referred to as like Latina descent, but like he like being like racially ambiguous to people most of the time, being a multiracial person, he like assumed that I was Latina and then like started talking in like an accent. He's checked me out, like checked out my groceries. He's checked out my groceries before. He didn't remember me because I was presenting in a different manner. Like I was more like femme presenting like this time around. And like he used an accent that he has never used before and like started trying to like talk in like this very racialized manner, like this, that I was like, wipe, it is so embarrassing being racist. Like, yeah, exactly. Ugh. It's like, how are you not embarrassed? And like, it's just me being like, okay, like just needing to get out of the place. Cause I'm like, this is not a safe environment. But I'm like, this is not an isolated incident. Like many people experience this all the time. Like, especially like me being light skinned, not experiencing not experiencing this nearly as much, but I was like, you idiot. Like, I'm like, that's not even my heritage, but discrimination and bigotry doesn't make sense and also is like deeply embarrassing. I got put into every team sport available, hated them all. Turns out my relationship with activity is just solitary sports. I like mountain biking and stuff. I'm glad you figured out what you like. My partner and I were talking about this the other day of like, you should just move how you want. Like, if you like doing something, that's what matters, rather than like having all of these like imposed ideas of what activity and fitness means. That usually, like, once again, can be bought, not just like encouraged for people to be healthy and have joy. Heaven forbid.
Before eating and eat in front of a mirror. LOL. I have an almond mom. I now suffer from chronic illness because the connection between my brain and my stomach disconnected. I don't remember what being hungry feels like. All I feel is nauseous and dry heaves 24/7. I've been in recovery for 4 years. Don't do it to yourself. It's not worth it. That was all the comments I wanted to read for this video. But before we get too far into the video, I want to introduce myself. If you're new here, my name is Cherry, and on this channel we talk about all things fitness, wellness, online gym culture, and sometimes the very weird things happening on the internet. And today's video is on the serious side, since we're looking into the skinny trend that dominates the internet.
Yeah,
Again,
sometimes
reading
all
these
of these
comments
things,
was very
like
shocking to
today.
me. I come from a culture that doesn't embrace thinness in the same way. Where I'm from, being extremely thin is usually not associated with anything positive. Usually people associate thinness with malnourishment, poverty, sickness, or serious illness. Definitely not beauty. If I was to go back home and I'm the size that Skinny Talk worships, my parents would be so concerned for me, they probably would take me to the hospital, and my entire family would think that I'm suffering from some serious illness if I was to go on
All of her edits are amazing. Also the or drugs, lol.
some extreme weight loss journey. That's how serious it is. So what's really interesting to me is how many women were describing being raised in environments where restricting food was normalized, encouraged, or even praised. And some of these stories weren't just similar to the original TikTok, they were even worse. And it makes sense why spaces like Skinny Talk became so successful.
As a very proud member of the Skinny Talk community, I think it's so important.
This looks like it's in Utah, by the way. She's wearing, what kind of coat is this? North Face, also pine trees around.
Embarrassing.
There's a study that looked at parental comments on weight, shape, and eating among adolescents. Adolescent is a scientific term for, or when children typically hit puberty. It goes into your teen years. What's important about this study is that instead of looking exclusively at harmful or extreme situations, it was looking at everyday comments made by parents, the kind that many people would probably not think twice about.
I was going to mention serious drug epidemic, mainly the ice problem.
Comments from mothers
Yeah,
about weight
exactly.
and shape than the sons did in the study. And it was regardless of whether or not those comments were good or bad. But they also reported receiving more
got an
negative
Amber
comments
Alert.
from their mom than the sons reported. And that immediately reminded me of the TikTok and the comments under it. Because so many of the stories were about comments surrounding food.
There have been a lot
needing
more
to want what you
of these
eat or lose
happening.
weight. And as we can see, over time, those comments can shape how someone views themselves. There was
Amber Alerts in the US mean, is this like international terminology? I don't know this. But of like when a child is abducted. These have been happening a lot more recently. And that's also not an accident with this fascist moment. Fire or weather for like a child being abducted. Also the fact of like, oh, we have a Gestapo agency that is state sanctioned and kidnapping people. Could they be responsible? Probably. And then blame it on someone in the working class, most likely.
another study that I looked
Horrible.
into that talk about something called fat talk. Basically, in this study, fat talk refers to parents talking negatively about their own weight and criticizing their own bodies, and also constantly discussing things like dieting, calories, and body size. Researchers found associations between these
the
behaviors
elderly.
and greater body dissatisfaction in children. And it makes sense
I
because
think they're
children
called
are
like
sponges. They
silver
absorb the contents of
alerts
the
or
environment that they're in.
something.
If a child spends years watching adults
There's like
say are
a
gaining
tier
weight,
of it
or celebrate being smaller,
here at
criticizing
least.
their own appearance, or constantly talking about dieting, they'll learn something whether or not someone explicitly teaches it. And this is what makes this conversation so interesting, because the comments I read literally reflected the results of those studies. And because on social media, we're often taught to think about harmful eating patterns only after they've already developed, naturally, people on TikTok had their own theories about how these beauty standards developed. Some argue that the beauty standards shifted because of media and fashion.
The skinny ideal that we know in today's day and age is around 100 years old. It doesn't actually go back that far, because before mass media, the ideal body type was completely different. Take, for example, ancient Greece. The ideal female body in that time was soft, round, and full, and you can see this in the sculptures from that time period. Some of the oldest depictions of women that we have that go back 20,000 years are bodies with rolls and a full stomach. That was the symbol of beauty back then. And this was very similar in the rest of the world, not just ancient Greece. Fuller bodies were celebrated celebrated for generations because they signaled wealth, health, and desirability. And the reason for this makes complete sense because for most of human history, food was scarce. Having a fuller body meant you had access to resources. You weren't sick, you could survive a famine, you could survive a long winter, you could carry and feed a child. It just signaled that you were thriving and that you were healthy. And on the other hand, thinness historically was associated with poverty, famine, and being sick.
Our tiered system is reserved for weather.
And then
Interesting.
something very specific and very drastic happened that changed this ideal completely. And that was the
Fire
early 1900s.
dangers,
Photography
lowest
became
and
mass-produced,
moderate.
film emerged, fashion magazines started circulating worldwide, and for the first time in human history, a small group of people
That
in
is
very specific cities
interesting.
decided what beauty.
We have also, in Utah specifically, been having a lot more fires. And that directly has to do with climate change and not having water.
Look like and broadcast that image to millions of people. Researchers actually tracked the BMI of Miss America beauty pageant winners across the 20th century, and they found a steady, measurable decline. And by the 1980s, a significant percentage of winners had BMIs that would be medically qualified as underweight. So when you feel this like internal pull to be a smaller version of yourself and you gravitate towards finding thinness attractive, just know that doesn't come from you.
Which also, by the way, BMI is an extremely problematic way to measure like health in a person, or even like fat, like what is healthy fat, or like what even that means in a person. That a lot of the time it is very racist and based in eugenics and, you know, white supremacy. That also IQs are also very racist, and that both of these things have been used to justify oppression of non-white people, but especially women and queer people in order, and, you know, like disabled people in order to justify like the oppressive structures that are marginalizing them.
And others argue that modern beauty standards are rooted in society rewarding women for looking younger and more childlike.
So I wrote a paper about this in college, and I want to talk about it because I feel like for some reason we all just kind of breeze past this. So all female beauty standards that are imposed upon by men to women are all rooted in. Okay, so let's talk about this. So ever since the patriarchy existed, which is the beginning of organized.
So she said PDF. So exploiting children.
You know, like organized civilizations, men have always been in charge. And back for almost all of time, men would marry really, really young girls, okay? So, you know, we'd have a 35-year-old man with a 13-year-old girl, right? That's normal. And now that that's not normal anymore, of course, people still do it, but now that that's
All
not
metrics
normal,
are a bunch of criteria stuffed through a personal motive.
women.
Yeah,
So
political
let's talk about
motives,
it.
oppressive
Our view of
motives.
a feminine woman, those traits are traits that little girls have. Small,
Exactly.
petite, thin, high-pitched voice, perfect skin, no body hair. Those are not traits that grown women have.
While I don't disagree with the belief that these standards very much reward women for resembling children, I mean, when you look at what's being praised right now, flat chests, narrow hips, a very small, bony frame, they do resemble children. I went and looked at the actual history, and it turned out to be much more complicated than just a single explanation. So basically, throughout history, the beauty standards have constantly changed. And that creator was right. Thinness was not always popular. At certain points, fuller bodies were the beauty standard. They were associated with things like health, wealth, fertility, and status. The first appearance of thinness as a beauty standard was in 1920, and this was with the rise of the flapper. Back then, flappers were young women who rejected many of the social expectations placed on women at the time. Following World War I, in the passage of the 19th Amendment, which granted women the right to vote, many women sought financial independence and personal autonomy. Flapper culture represented the shift away from strict, modest gender roles towards modern liberation. They embraced shorter hairstyles, less restrictive clothing like the corset, and they
Showed
idealized
Josephine
a narrow,
Baker,
slim body that contrasted the previous
famous
beauty ideals
burlesque
that included
artist.
having a curvy figure. What started off as a youth movement became heavily popularized through magazines, illustrations, literature, and Hollywood film, even though
Josephine
many of the
Baker
older
again.
generation did not approve of it. Specifically, Vogue helped popularize the flapper boyish body type, which was a boyish silhouette characterized by.
Yeah, like what she is saying, it was based off of this idea of like, we are not going to conform to these ideas of beauty and these beauty standards. There is also this kind of complex and slightly problematic idea of like, well, we're going to just look boyish. In order to like gain power, you have to have proximity to maleness, but also for the time, that was very revolutionary. But like, the cuts of the dresses were meant to make people look that way. So like the styling, people also still wore corsets. They would wear essentially like chest binders. Hi. It's like what I'm wearing today. People would be wearing binders and corsets that would intentionally like flatten their chests and make it so that they didn't have as much of a waistline, that it would be like slim. Not, I guess I shouldn't say slim, but more just like up and down, like straight up and down. And that like they were still engaging in this type of like trying to transform the body to appeal in a particular way.
A flat chest, narrow hips, and no defined waist, which ultimately led to the
It's
pressure
a
for women
critique
to become
reclaimed and
small. However,
repackaged for
decades
market.
later,
Yep.
the trend changed again. And then
Like what
1950s came
most
around,
trends
curves once
are.
again became the beauty standard, with women like Marilyn
Counterculture's
Monroe
reclaimed
becoming the
critique.
beauty icon,
Yeah.
and ideal
Where
body types emphasized
high
an hourglass
fashion
shape
comes
with
in,
fuller
they're like,
hips
oh,
and
we're
full
going to
bust.
acknowledge
This was a
this. And
dramatic
then
shift.
people are excited. They're like, oh, like the fashion people, the beauty industry, they're noticing us and like this revolutionary thing. And that's never a good thing, which is why we should never be trying to like copy other people and like conform to what we think is like idealistic beauty standards, because it's usually being controlled. And like what you're saying, it's repackaged and it intentionally is used to defang these more revolutionary movements.
From the slimmer flapper look that had been popular a few decades earlier. Then again, skinny came back in the 1960s with the world's first supermodel known as Twiggy, and this helped popularize the ultra thin model aesthetic. This was the first time we saw the thin look become an aesthetic. Her look was noticeably different from the curvier beauty standards that came before her, and she became the symbol of a new era in fashion that celebrated youthfulness and thinness. And then, decades later, it shifted again. We saw things like aerobics, fitness culture, and workout video. And now the ideal body standard is for a woman to not be thin, but she was expected to be toned, athletic, and physically active. Strength and fitness became a major part of the beauty standard. And then a decade later, in the 90s, the heroin chic was introduced. Y'all, I'm not gonna lie, looking into this, I don't know what people was going through back then. Heroin chic. At this time, fashion campaigns featured extremely thin models with pale skin, dark under eyes, and deliberately gaunt appearance. This trend was controversial though, and at the time, many critics argued that it glamorized unhealthy body types. And then we all probably know about the 2010 Instagram baddie or BBL era, where basically you were expected to have a tiny waist, flat stomach, large hips, fuller glutes, and
Hello, Photo Piadini. We are talking about culture in various aspects, decolonizing culture, whatever that means, and reclaiming culture, especially as a way to decolonize. And this particular video is talking about white beauty standards for women and how there are these differences when it comes to like what is viewed as beautiful under white supremacy, and that it is directly a colonial enterprise and a capitalist enterprise where you can buy these things. So like all of these different movements that she's talking about in terms of like what was the ideal beauty, it's like it just goes to show that like beauty standards are constantly changing. It's an ever-moving goalpost, and that like around the time of like the Kim K stuff, like all that bullshit, it's like that's when like the BBL was like being popularized, not just because she was doing it, but because surgeons and people in pharmaceuticals were like, oh, we want to advertise this. So they would help pay for people's procedures to be walking advertisements. That's like a lot of this is a product of that, where you have like these product placements and like brand endorsements where people get this stuff done for free. They get medications for free. And then they're like, oh yeah, I'm advertising for this. And essentially that is how like culture is co-opted by the 1% in order to further commodify people's bodies. Anyway, that's what we're talking about now. How are you doing?
it also became one of the most sought after body types online, which led to things like intense workout programs and cosmetic procedures like the BBL. And now we're watching another shift towards thinness play out across social media. And I think this is particularly due to the rise in drugs like Ozempic or GLP-1s. But when you look at the trends, a lot of them say things like women were expected to look like this or women were expected to look like that. And as I read those articles, I kept thinking, which women? Because as a black woman, some of these beauty standards sound completely foreign to me.
Ooh,
Like the
a
idea
great
that
book
the
on the
ideal woman was supposed to be
evolution
as
of
small as
beauty,
possible has never been
Umberto
the dominant
Eco.
message I grew up around. In fact, it was
Cool.
always the
I'm
opposite.
gonna have to
I don't know
check
how to
this
explain
out.
it, but it feels like
Can I just say, I love that there are so many people who watch this stream who read. Thank you. That makes me so fucking happy. Not like people have to be reading, but it just is like, I love that. My people. Okay, that's going on the list. I have so many fucking things to read on my reading list, but you know what? I would rather have that as a problem than like not have great options or not be asking around for options.
White body standards round down and Black beauty standards round up. So like from a Black perspective, you can be overweight, but if like you got the curves, you got a butt, you got your boobs, it doesn't matter what your belly, arms, thighs are looking like. Like they round up to like, oh, you have these things though, right? Where with like the white beauty standard, it's like if your thighs touch but your stomach is flat, it's like you're still fat. Like we're rounding down. Like you are your lowest denominator.
Like I said in my previous video, curves were always celebrated, even if it meant you had to be obese. And I think that's part of the reason why this conversation exploded online. A lot of Black women, like myself, are looking at these discussions and realizing that what many people are calling the beauty standard is actually a very specific beauty standard that comes from a particular cultural lens.
White people's perception of size is so warped. And it's so strange because you will see like the most mid-sized, regular, I guess skinny looking white girls, and they'll be like, I was bullied coming up for being fat. And I'm just like, bro. So let me give you an example. So when I was in high school, I went dress shopping in New Orleans. The first dress shop I went to was a Black shop. Like it was like Black owned, the lady that was helping me was a Black lady. I'll include some pictures of me in high school for reference. And the lady at the first dress shop was like, oh my goodness, like you're so small at the waist, you're probably like an 8, 10 or whatever. I think I ended up being like a 12 because, formal dress shops, whatever. So then I go to this like it's more of a like white dress shop, and the lady comes up to me and she's like, oh, well, here's a size 24. And me and my mom are looking at her like, I'm not a 24, which like, there's nothing wrong with being a 24, but it's just like, what are you looking at that makes you feel like this dress is gonna fit me? And she was like, well, just try it on. And it's just so strange. And it's just like, I just feel so bad for white women for having to fit into that beauty standard. But also, it just kind of makes me think, on like, how white people perceive bigger people because of the standards.
Thank you very much.
And that's why people keep calling it a white body standard, because the pressure to be extremely thin is not experienced equally across every community. The same body that might be considered too big in one space might also be considered perfectly normal in another space, or even desirable in another. That's why I don't think that there's a single explanation for how we got here. But what I do think is clear is that women's bodies are constantly being treated like trends on the media. And as you guys can see from the long history that I went through, one decade it's curves, the next decade it's thinness, another decade it's being athletic, then another decade it's slim thick, and now we're at Ozempic. Then who knows what comes next? Like you can't even imagine. And these things have a very real consequences. Chronic undereating can impact
it's a bit controversial on some topics. I mean, that's kind of to be expected.
For women in particular, you face the risk of things like menstrual irregularities, fertility issues, and a higher risk of osteoporosis.
Many Western writers, to be honest.
Why strength and proper nutrition are so important as women age. The body needs adequate food.
Good to be scrutinizing these things.
And functional over time. And functional over the long
calling
term.
out people's shit.
Social media might celebrate a certain look, our bodies still have biological needs that don't change just because a beauty trend does. So what I'm trying to say is the overall goal should be health, because as
not
we can
so
see,
great human.
trends are not gonna stop.
Yeah.
Even though Black
so often we find that
like standards, both still can create pressure.
Many authors, people we lionize in history, very complex people.
And they're still tying a woman's value to how closely they match a particular body type. Personally, I feel like the real conversation should be more about why women's bodies keep getting treated like trends in the first place. Because if history taught us anything, it's that the trends will change. It always does. And I think that's something
I love that she's calling this out of like, we shouldn't be saying like we can't talk about women's bodies. If we lived in an ideal world, we wouldn't be talking about anyone's appearance. We would just be like, everyone is beautiful. Yay! Love that. Love that you come from a particular background. Love all skin colors. Love all textures of hair. But like, because we don't live in this world and how we are constantly, especially with patriarchy, like women are commodified. And especially when we have these intersections of marginalization where there is a history of certain women, especially like Black women in America and just like around the world in various instances, but like indigenous women in particular, like quite literally being commodified and enslaved, like to justify their enslavement, to have this eroticism and impose beauty standards on people, but also to still control women in the petty bourgeois, and make it so that they do not have any as many avenues for power, that they are constantly under the thumb of men, that they're also being commodified and viewed as property, especially back in the day of like not being able to own anything, have bank accounts, be able to work, find jobs, have like autonomy over their bodies. It's like, this is where these fascists in power are wanting things to go. So we need to be talking about this kind of stuff. I believe that the horrid people can write amazing things and vice versa, but some people cut authors out immediately if not a good person. Separating the art from the artist is sometimes hard, but important. I know, I think the concept of separating the art from the artist is like a good conversation to be had, because I don't think we should completely separate art from artist. I think we should rather like look at it as a whole and say like, okay, we can still say like someone had talent, like Picasso was a talented painter, but also like stole a lot of his inspiration from various African tribes and their art, and also was incredibly sexist and misogynistic and like abusive, and being like, okay, so that also should scrutinize how we look at the art too. That like people are not always the most reliable narrators when it comes to like their own lives and their own art as well. Art from artist is case by case and person to person. Art by definition is subjective. That is true. I come from the perspective that I think we also need to look at it as a whole, of like, are people actually being a reliable narrator? Are they claiming to be like, oh, I'm for like, I stand for these things in their art, but then in their personal lives, they do different things. Like, then we have to call into question their aspects of the art. I think it's also important to not blame the individual, even if they are famous. Yeah, that's a really good point. The blame should be put on the giant companies who are forcing these trends and ideals, the man. Yes, exactly. That's a really great point of like people, and I think this kind of goes back to like the Ariana Grande of it all, of like, she is still extremely exploited. Like, people who are put in these positions are essentially like puppets a lot of the time, and that like they are being harmed by these systems as well, even if they do have a lot of privilege and like access to capital, and can even like believe in these systems themselves. That it's like people should not necessarily be like, Ariana Grande should not necessarily be blamed for like all young girls growing up with like feeling like they should be skinny, but rather we need to call into question the systems that are constantly putting people who are as skinny as her in these very visible areas of media. And like how she's talking about in how there are very like white centric eugenicist beauty standards in white spaces, but like the Black women, especially like in Western media, who get elevated to like some of the top positions and getting roles, like, again, they shouldn't be like demonized in and of themselves, but like it is this system that is constantly being like, the more proximity to like Eurocentric beauty standards, the more you will be seen. Like for example, like Zendaya being viewed as like more of like a fashion girly because of how skinny she is. That doesn't mean that like she's not naturally that way, like she's beautiful, but that like there are many people like that where they're only able to be in these spaces because they have proximity to these white Eurocentric beauty standards. We should scrutinize them, especially in order not to idolize some people, but the line must be drawn at some point. Hemingway was a wife beater, still a good writer. Yeah, Hemingway is annoying. Doesn't mean that like he didn't have talent, but also like we need to call into question why we like his writing is viewed as great as it is when there are many artists and writers who are as great, if not greater, and that they are not being elevated to that same position. The weirdest call ever. Was that with your mom to get pho? Maybe Ariana likes the attention of people being concerned about her, but the system is why she might be like that. Yeah, exactly. And like talking about how like getting all of these like she may be like getting more like brand deals and stuff, or like who is sponsoring her tour, like all of these like high fashion houses, that it's like that they're part of the problem. And she is just like similar, I mean, this will sound strange, but also like similar to how like Donald Trump is a product of this system of like capitalism not having any checks and no restraints being put on it, it doesn't mean that like we wouldn't have someone like him. Like there are many people like him that would also like result in what's happening now. So like many people who are like more liberal thinking like, oh, we just need to get rid of him. It's like, yes, he's a bad person. He's awful and evil, but also he's not an isolated incident, you know? I wish I could add to the conversation in Italian. I'm not sure I can express the same concepts in English. That's okay. Even if you want to write in Italian, we can always like be like the Western people, I mean, not Western, like the American people who are using like Google Translate. If you want to write in Italian, I think that's fine. I'm sorry, I don't know Italian very well. I know like very few words and like some basic pronunciation, and that does not count. I texted a VTuber asking when she was going to stream next, and she called to show off her hair. She's fun. And I let her know she was pretty, because that's what she wants. I was confused because my question was left unanswered. Also, there are bodies who are naturally like the bodies yes, exactly, of like not demonizing people who just are like, that's how their bodies are. It's just the systems that are placing this and saying this is the norm and how everyone should look. That's the issue. As a society are scrutinizing. What does that say to women and girls who are like that? I think it is quite damaging. Yeah, of like kind of like what I was mentioning before of like it doesn't mean that like Ariana, she probably didn't even like ask to be a role model. Like we shouldn't always be like people who are put in these positions are like having all this pressure to be like, you need to be a perfect role model. And they're like, I didn't ask for that. And I just wanted to be in a movie or I just wanted to be able to be an artist. And like, that's not fair. It's just that like a lot of the time, like these famous people and celebrities, they're like essentially like avatars for these systems where like the system can be, they want to abdicate their accountability and responsibility and let the people who are the face of it take all of the bullshit, which is not fair to them because they're the ones like the 1%, the people who are owning all of these systems are like controlling things and they are able to like not bear the brunt of it. And sadly, we see that like women and marginalized people in general are the ones who receive it the most. There's quite literally no reason to learn Italian unless being in Italy. I mean, for me, like, going to school for like classical voice, like as like my minor in college, that would have been helpful in having like a better Italian pronunciation, but also more of like a niche concept. Homegirl just wants to perform. Yeah, exactly. And yeah, going back to Ariana specifically, it's like she's so fucking talented and that it's like a larger commentary, like what Cherry's talking about here, that it's a larger commentary on like why are we even having these conversations? It's not that like oh, you're too skinny and that's bad. It's like there are people who are concerned when like someone like if someone is experiencing like health issues and like her previous performances and being able to like dance, like she would dance a lot and have like very high energy and like no one should be expected to keep that up as they age, especially when she's like so fucking talented to like earn her way to like do whatever she wants. But like the times where it looks like she's like barely able to stand or she has to like hold on to people and people are like, we're concerned about you. Like the people who are like encouraging you to keep touring, like whether it's your family, like your label, that like they need to take responsibility for your health and not like work you to death, because so many celebrities are, because they are just like taking like they're these show ponies, like dehumanized in so many ways in order to like make people money. But if they say anything, they get fired. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It just is like it's such a sad situation because like even like with the Demi Moore example of like she may be healthy, but also like it's concerning that like on red carpets, people who are viewed as like the pinnacle of beauty, who are being advertised as such, it's not to say they aren't beautiful, but that they all have like a very similar body type, and we're not getting a variety of people, and that it's usually based in like these white Eurocentric beauty standards that also can be bought. Like that is the most important aspect, is that it's like part of this larger structure that is being controlled by like capitalist forces that are saying like, no, you have to like buy this type of drug in order to be skinny and beautiful. You have to buy this type of dress, that you have to like buy this type of like equipment in order to work out and work out in this way, instead of just like letting people be human beings. I feel in the specific case of Ariana, she just folded under the pressure of everything she wanted, needed, was required to do. I mean, it's hard to say as well, of like, we can't possibly know what's going on behind the scenes, but also like having a history of seeing so many celebrities be like worked to death, quite literally, or even like celebrities who have eating disorders that like people interviewing them and being insensitive about their eating disorders, like that's not helpful. But also like how they keep being like trotted out in the public to be constantly making people money, that it's like the system that is at fault. Also, when she was on the carpet of some color, she was looking a little more fuller in the face, and everyone rejoiced. They were like, she's back, which is so much pressure. Yeah, just like constantly having your appearance be scrutinized, like that has to fuck with your head. It's like saying someone who is depressed was laughing, so they must be cured. Yeah, especially for celebrities who have just like a rabid fan base. It's like it can come from a place of care, but also understanding that like we can't possibly know who she is personally. And that's just like the nature of like parasocial relationships, and like how also these aspects of celebrity worship fall into this concept of neoliberal fascism, that they want to have us focus on the celebrity and revere a celebrity and not actually criticize the systems that are like controlling them in many ways, and also like dictating what they can or can't do, what kind of freedom they have, and how they are they don't have a lot of autonomy. And that like even something that I like saw today, like Gwyneth Paltrow, she is someone that I've like criticized for a long time, and people have been annoyed with me like, she's a good actor. I'm like, no, she's not. Not that great, but she was like for a long time, like in the early 2000s, like one of those viewed as like the pinnacle of beauty, also kind of falling into like the heroin chic body type, which she naturally seems to be like very like willowy in nature, and it's not her fault that like she was constantly portrayed as like the pinnacle of beauty. But like these white centric beauty standards and people being elevated to these spaces because of those things, that like they are cut off from the world in many ways, that they don't relate to everyday people, and it makes them so like they become part of like the capitalist class, that a lot of the time like people who are like anti-establishment, they end up like reversing on, like Gwen Stefani, and who else? There's so many people. They like make a career out of being more revolutionary. Not like Gwyneth Paltrow ever was. But anyway, this is me saying that like recently finding out that Gwyneth Paltrow, who was like viewed as like, oh, she's like a uh a girl boss, like one of the original like girl bosses, because she made Goop. She made a candle that like smelled like her vagina, which is like kind of fierce. Like I kind of think that's cool. I wouldn't buy one. But also, which doesn't mean I'm not gonna get into that. But she's also now like, after like being a capitalist and having this very successful business, is now selling condos in Israel on stolen Palestinian land by settlers. So like how people can become part of the problem. We cannot know, but we do have examples of actors refusing the Hollywood norm and getting discarded for that. Brendan Fraser's story breaks me every time. Yeah, exactly. Did you say vagina candle? Sure did. I don't know if they're still selling it on Goop, but they were. I'm gonna look that up. They said it was satirical. They didn't even try to make it smell like vagina. That's lame. Instead, it smells like geranium and woody notes. I feel like that's appealing to the male gaze if they're like, let's put wood in here. I was also shocked. That is something that I just like have locked and loaded, I guess. I'm like, yeah, the Goop vagina candle. Which that could be viewed as like a reclaiming of like normalizing, because there's so many people who are like, oh, like vagina stinks or like fish or whatever. I'm like, yeah, like it can, but also like anybody's genitals can. How about we normalize that? Goop vagina candle. Oh yeah. So her like hands off my vagina, literally capitalizing, like at first being like, oh, that's cool, that's a statement. But like this isn't a direct example of like what you were saying, anarcho taco, if you're still here, about like capitalizing revolutionary movements so that it is like defanged, and like the like punch behind it, like the meaning behind it gets minimized and is quite literally commodified and capitalized. So like her being like, I'm for women's rights, but then also like making a shit ton of money off of this candle. My vagina smells like concrete. And cotton candy. Oh my god. That is so funny. Inspired by my shorts after the gym. Concrete, odorless. It's just cold, slightly depressed, a little bit dusty, and cotton candy. So just like parking outside of a carnival or something. I don't know. Power wins. Candle is a grift. People buy their identity ideology. Nobody threatens structure. Yeah, it's all bought in the end, which is like what the whole argument even is about, or not even an argument, but like the whole situation is really about these structures that are controlling who gets seen and why, and who not only is like the face of it, but who is actively making the most money from these people being the faces of a particular like image. Parking outside of a carnival. Cinema. Oh, what an interesting turn. I know I did that. I take responsibility for that. We got way off, except not really. So, anyway. Shall we finish the video?
That the comment section in the TikTok video highlighted for me. Because one thing that stood out to me was the fact that these trends have come and go, but yet the women who eventually became moms and had their own daughters to raise still felt the effects of those trends. Like their behaviors and belief about foods were passed down to them, and years later, they pass it down to their daughters. And that's what makes this conversation so important, because it shows that beauty standards don't just exist in magazines or runways or on social media. They eventually follow people home and get absorbed into families. And I think that's a reminder that when we treat women's bodies like trends, the consequences just don't disappear. And I think the most important thing you can take away from
Yeah.
this video is that your body is not a trend. You don't have to shrink yourself because social media says that's what's beautiful. You don't have to force yourself into a body type that isn't realistic or healthy or sustainable for you. And if you've noticed that social media have been affecting the way that you view yourself, there's absolutely nothing wrong with taking a break. Like, I believe as I'm recording this
Yeah.
video, I don't even have TikTok installed in my phone. Like, even if it involves just going on.
Hello. This is such great advice. Love that. Since being a little more active on social media, not even really that active, just like making some accounts, I like told a story a little bit ago that was like I started spiraling upon seeing like someone from high school recommended to me. It's like, oh no. Like having to like confront all of these aspects of like white Eurocentric beauty standards and like class and all this stuff, and being like, this is why I don't come on these platforms, but that's also like algorithms are serving this shit intentionally. And who controls these algorithms? It's these billionaires who are also invested in all of these other commodifying of culture and beauty,
cut some grass. Like,
so-called culture and so-called
probably
beauty.
would lose my mind. So don't be afraid to close the app. And if this video brought up concerns about your relationship with food, body image, or eating habits, please consider talking to a healthcare professional, therapist, or a registered dietitian. But before I go, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Have you experienced any of the things I talked about in this video? Did you grow up around diet culture? Did your community have different beauty standards like mine did? Let me know in the comments because I genuinely love to hear your perspective. If you enjoyed this video and want to hear me talk more about topics in the fitness, wellness, and diet and culture space, make sure you give this video a huge thumbs up, subscribe to my channel so you don't miss any of my future uploads, and turn on your notifications. You can also follow me on my social media platforms, which is linked below. And again, thank you so much for watching my video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Don't bite me. Don't bite me.
Oh, her cat. So cute.
I need to fix my little necklace.
Yeah, she has really great content. Highly recommend. Sherry Talks Fitness. Some really great information there. Important discussions to be had. I think beauty topic is intrinsically linked with health and plays to convince us we don't know what healthy is. Authority does. Yeah, instead of like listening what feels healthy, yeah, listening to our own bodies, because that goes directly against the capitalist agenda in selling us, in it commodifying every aspect of life. You cannot discard cultural biases. Yeah, that was right. And sometimes those are hard to overcome. What it's very much doable is not being an ass about them. Yeah, exactly. And also trying to like have these conversations in a way that's not dehumanizing people, because like that is the end goal of these oppressive systems. They're inherently anti-human, and like centering our humanity is like the whole point and why we should be having these conversations. Okay. Just looking at the time. Oh, I did want to show, this was shared. Let me see. This was shared. I wanted to play a little bit of music. Shared by Chatter recently, Night to Love, of this Stromae song. Stromae does tend to get copywritten, copy strike. There are copy strikes in like trying to post to YouTube. So I'll probably like stop it in between for us to chat about it. I'm just refreshing this. I personally not disagree with someone saying I do not like X particular thing. So the thing is outside his or her cultural world. I would give him shit the moment he says that thing sucks, is wrong. Yeah, it's like it's hard to actually understand what has been conditioned and what is actually our own opinion. And so I think that is like a point well taken in like we have to, if we are truly wanting to come from a decolonized perspective that includes breaking down these oppressive systems, that we must like engage in a very critical way like what we like and why, because a lot of the time like when we are not engaging with this, it often is just like what we are told to like or what we are told to be drawn towards, rather than actually engaging with it in a critical way. Which is why I always say, like, establishing your own opinions, that, like, not just, like, copying what people say, actually, like, talking with people, like, ingesting a lot of different types of media and art, like, being exposed to a lot of things, and, like, establishing what you like is an important critical thinking exercise. It takes quite a bit of self-exploration to know what we have been induced to like. Not everybody has it. It takes nothing not to shit to thing you do not like. Yeah. Yeah, especially like even considering like the people we view as, or especially like the people we view as attractive, and understanding like it can be a very queer decolonizing lens to be like, okay, why are we viewing this person as like the pinnacle of beauty? Is it because like we are particularly drawn to this person for like A, B, and C? Or is it like that we personally like? Or is it because we have been told to like these things? Which is like, that's my argument, not, this is also like a joke of being for like pansexuality or like sapiosexuality, of like I am drawn towards like ideas and like the ideas that people have. I think that is like the biggest hallmark of like the people that I am attracted to, the people that I want to engage with, the art that I want to engage with, and that like often, and like that's something that does not always like come natural to people, and how sometimes like people's sexuality can be like a way to manipulate them. Of like, just the other day, not the other day, it was like a few weeks ago, I went into a bar. I like happened to be by myself. I was like, okay, I want to get a drink, get something to eat. And I happened to be more femme presenting that day, which most of the time when I am like out in public, I am not always wanting to be femme presenting, because like the whiplash I get for not being femme presenting, like being more like androgynous, is like extremely depressing. And so I try to like avoid that, because people are so much nicer to me when I'm more femme presenting. Like, this did happen the other day. Like a woman that was like very clearly MAGA, like told me that I could like go ahead of her in line. That is not something that would ever happen to me presenting like this. And like she would probably like follow me out to my car if I was like dressed like this. So like that just goes to show like bigotry is stupid. Like it just like makes you dumb. But and like in like a very like establishing your own opinions way, not in like an ableist way, because like who views intelligence as what is also controlled by like these larger structures. But I like went into this bar a couple of weeks ago, and I was by myself, just happened to get a drink and like something to eat. And there was this dude that was sitting next to me that was like, oh, like he seemed very conservative in certain ways. And I was talking to him, and he was like, oh, what are you passionate about, or something like that. It was like a weird question. I mean, it was for the context. It just like came across in a weird way. it just like had this idea of like he just wanted to figure out what I liked so that he could like just repeat whatever it was to probably like get in my pants. That's probably what it was. And so I said, I'm like, oh, I'm like concerned about like this data center that's being built in Utah. And he was just like, what is that? Didn't know about it. And he's like, we don't need that. And it very clearly seemed like he liked that kind of stuff, like AI and like 4 billionaires and all this stuff, but that he was saying something very different from the things that I was saying. He originally had that opinion and then like switched to whatever I was saying because he was like wanting a particular thing to happen. I don't know what that was, but like with me physically from what it seemed. And I was like, so he's engaging in probably like this manipulative behavior, or he's just like easily manipulated because of this type of sexuality of like people. But like he's also someone that like if I'd showed up like this would have like been staring at me the whole time with like hatred in his eyes, and I would be like afraid for my safety in other ways. So like it just is like interesting because it's like people are so dumb because I'm the same person. I have the same ideas, no matter how I am presenting. And it just is like funny how people are like, how people's prejudices just show like how stupid it all is. Like it doesn't logically make sense. I would personally not disagree with someone. Oh wait, I already read that. Takes quite a lot of self-exploration. There's a big difference in me saying I do not like Japanese woman and me saying Japanese woman sucks, and whoever likes them is wrong. Well, I mean, that also is like dealing with like people's like racial biases as well, of like this Orientalism in like justifying, especially in the Western world where there's like a lot of like racialized violence that goes into this type of bigotry, but also like how there is this fetishization that happens to Asian women with that started with Orientalism to begin with to justify colonization. And it's like you can have like personal preferences, but also if it's like based on like a racialized basis, that it's like these are things that are social structures that are taught to us that are meant to justify oppression and other people. Trying to get into your pants. Yeah, most people invent ideology on the spot and discard it just as quick. Identity forms from desire. Being critical of your own ideas is hard. Not being a racist ass is easy. That was an example, of course. Yeah. Yeah, of like having to constantly call into question of like who is being viewed as beautiful, that like that also like that is a concept that is very prevalent like in many aspects of like attraction and sexuality, but like even in like the queer community there's like this phrase among gay men that's like, no, fats, femmes, or Asians. And I'm like, okay, so this is fat phobic, this is misogynistic, femphobic, and racist. And it's like this is like inherently part of these structures that are oppressive, that are capitalist, that are telling that like certain people deserve more humanity than others, and that's just like deplorable. And how we need to constantly be decolonizing what it even means to be attracted to someone, and why it's important to be like calling it out when we see that bullshit happen, or like people express things like that of like it is racist. It is racist to just say like, oh, I don't like a whole like swath of people. I'm like, okay, so have you met everyone who is like part of this structure where like race is made up? and that it is made up by these like warmongering evil people in order to justify like their hierarchies of human dignity, rather than actually deconstructing what we like and what we don't to understand like what we actually view as attractive, not like who we are told to be attracted to, and not just for like commodification reasons, like the people who also fetishize race as well, like how I mentioned before. Compared to us Italian commies, you do shit enough on capitalism, but not enough on religions. Oh, in talking about the harm of religions? You do shit enough on capitalism. I am not a religious person whatsoever, but I was just observing the difference. We have big Catholic Church problem. No, that is true. I tend to like shit on the Mormon Church a lot. I love the rants. I'm probably doing it too much, but whatever. Um, yeah. It's like religion, especially when it comes to like religious nationalism. That is something that I criticize a lot, which I think the Catholic Church, that is part of religious nationalism in Italy, in like having Catholicism be institutionalized in policy, in political policy, but also like the Christian nationalism that's happening in the US, in it being institutionalized in Mormonism, and uh also like in India, like being Indian, talking about Hindu nationalism. um these are a lot of the things that I touch on probably the most, but I think any sort of like religious nationalism, any sort of like imposed religion is unethical. As we were talking about consent yesterday, um talking about how like if something is imposed on you, then like you can't possibly truly consent to it, and how that is used to brainwash people a lot of the time. And I say all religions are true, all religions are false. Organized religions. Yeah, exactly. Someone tells you they love the rants. I should probably do that. Oh, that shit is so true, though. That's honestly a reflection of my upbringing, where I'm like, someone's like, oh, I like this. Me gaslighting myself out of people like liking like a genuine opinion. The Pope in Italy, our party, main party till the 80s, was called Christian democracy. That's the reason we were a European country to grant women divorce and voting rights. We're the last. Catholic Church is so much intertwined with power over here. Yeah, exactly. Just like how the Church of England, the Anglican Church, is intertwined with uh, England, with the UK. It's like you can see this in almost like every single country, like an aspect of religion, a predominant religion being institutionalized and imposed through like political policy. And that is immoral. Hi, Buck. I don't know if you could hear her. She was screeching in the background. Okay. Shall we listen to this? Fils de Joie by Stromae. This may get a copyright strike in the YouTube video. we'll see. He also criticizes a lot of these power structures in France in particular. All Abrahamic religions have state actors pushing accelerationist. Yeah, exactly. Eschatological agendas. Which also is a form of like Western, like centering what it means to be in like the quote unquote West and how that is used to impose dominance rather than honoring everyone's autonomy and culture, especially when it comes to like indigenous traditions.
Le plus dur, bah c'était la première fois. Puis le plus dur, c'est de savoir quand sera la dernière fois. C'est vrai, je suis pas contre un peu de tendresse de temps en temps. Et puis cette fois-ci, ben je pourrais le faire en l'insultant. Oui, tout est négociable dans la vie moyennant paiement. En plus, je suis sûrement son meilleur client. Mais oh, laissez donc ma maman, mais je sais. C'est vrai qu'elle n'est pas parfaite, c'est un héros. Et ce sera toujours fièrement que j'en parlerai. Que j'en parlerai. Je suis un fils de pute, comme ils disent. Après tout ce qu'elle a.
I can't remember where I first heard Stromae. I think this was something that Night and Law of the person who recommended this to begin with. We are talking about admiring Stromae, especially the like deconstruction of gender. Finally, the kitty. Hair, I know. Thank God for the kitty. Yeah. Orthodox is anti-West. Is still going eschatological. I don't know if I'm familiar with that term, eschatological. I'm gonna look that up. I'm learning some new shit. I know, isn't that hair fierce? Stromae is like known for incredible fashion. Okay, sorry, not to keep interrupting, but relating to death, judgment, and the final destiny of the soul and humankind. What? Yeah, judgment especially. Yeah, that I didn't know that was the terminology for that. Like outside of more like cyclical views of like the life cycle or like death, rather that there's like this all-powerful being. Escargological, especially in this context. The belief about the end of all things, Armageddon, rapture, or climate change. Yeah, of like accelerationist stuff too. Wow, thank you very much. I learned so much from you folks. Not specific to religion. Science has heat, death of universe, and entropy. Yeah, but how that is used to justify these types of theologies. So, like, it's not based in, like... Hi, Bug. I don't know if you can hear her purring. Yeah, if it's based in... like it has some scientific basis, but also how people like take that and run with it. Or like, well, this is the like with entropy, like everything is chaos and like we're going to die, so I'm going to tell you what to do, and if you don't, then you're going to hell. That's like, excuse me. That's rude. Thank you for enlightening me.
Pourquoi tout le monde me déteste alors que c'est moi qui les nourris? leur vie serait bien plus modeste. Sans moi, elle serait pourrie. Le lit et la sécurité ont un prix, madame. Ben oui, dans la vie, tout se paye. On ne te l'avait donc jamais appris. On m'accuse de faire de la traite d'êtres humains.
That is such a French thing to do.
20%, c'est déjà bien. Faudrait pas qu'elles se prennent un peu trop pour des mannequins. Mesdames, ou devrais-je dire putain? Mais oh, laissez donc ma maman. Oui, je sais. C'est vrai qu'elle n'est pas parfaite. C'est un héros. Et ce sera toujours fièrement que j'en parlerai. Que j'en parlerai. Je suis un fils de pute, comme ils disent. Après tout ce qu'elle a fait pour eux, pardonne leurs bêtises. Oh chère mère, ils te déshumanisent. C'est plus facile, les mêmes te courtisent. Et tout le monde ferme les yeux. Je sais que c'est ton boulot, mais faut bien que je fasse le mien, non? Entre le tien et le mien.
Twitch isn't showing this? Ugh, how annoying. Hello, Seventh Vixen. Welcome. Most eschatology refers to theology, but science tells us millions ways Earth can end. Yeah, I use it for game theory. How does it motivate actors? That's interesting. What is this video? This is by Stromae, Fils de Joie, which is like satire of just saying like child of joy, but like talking about how it's very difficult to have joy. Is this still like striking? The copyright gods are striking me down. I don't know what that means by you can't see me. Is it like the whole video or just the whole screen? Yeah, this is Juniper. I'm going to... I can see you just fine. Maybe it's because I've paused it for a sec.
La différence c'est que moi je paye des impôts.
Maybe I'll turn it down.
Allez circuler madame, reprends tes papiers, ce qui te reste de dignité. Aux femmes, trouve-toi un vrai métier.
The outfits are very cool. Is he a politician? He is an artist, but he is, I think, presenting as a politician.
Laissez donc ma maman, oui je sais. C'est vrai qu'elle n'est pas parfaite, c'est un héros. Et ce sera toujours fièrement que j'en parlerai.
With this hair.
Je suis un fils de pute, comme ils disent. Après tout ce qu'elle a fait pour eux, pardonne leurs bêtises. Oh chère mère, ils te déshumanisent.
0 issues. I wonder as well if it's like limiting it by country. Yeah, they dehumanize you. God, I hate politicians. Yeah, I do too. And like how they're saying, like telling you what it means to be joyful instead of actually discovering it for ourselves.
C'est plus facile, les mêmes te bourdisent et tout le monde ferme les yeux.
Also with like the harpsichord? The harpsichord in the background. Very fierce. Okay. Let's get to... Oops. Oh, there is this song that I wanted to show that you submitted, Seventh Vixen. From the Zensky Pevsky's Bor Kabinat, that they sing revolutionary songs, which is very cool, from around the world. You don't have... My big sister said you don't have to like politicians. You can be one. Like, or how about we just don't have any politicians? We just like have 0, I feel, imagination a lot of the time when it comes to like, I mean, not all of us, but there's a little imagination with like, what could a world look like with actual types of democracy without it being co-opted by this liberalism that says like only a certain class can be in charge because the rest of us are dumb and don't know anything. I mean, plenty of us are dumb. I can be very dumb sometimes. But yeah. Okay, so I wanted to show this background a little bit. I really liked this. So, Cabanat is a female choir that was officially born on their Resistance Day, April 27th, 2008. April 27th is a state holiday in Slovenia. It was formerly known as the Liberation Front Day. Dan Osvobodilne Front. Oh, God. I'm offending so many people. It marks the establishment of the Liberation Front in Slovenia in 1941. The idea to start a choir that sings revolutionary tunes from all over the world in original languages started at a bachelorette party of one of our members. Okay, one of the best things to ever have happened at a bachelorette party. Maybe, like, the best thing, arguably. Combinat's members are from all over the country, so in Slovenia, and have versatile professions. We have preschool teachers, high school teachers, lawyers, social workers, archaeologists, biologists, secretaries, accountants, students. There's a magnificent singer-songwriter among us. Journalists, economists, academics, the list goes on and on. Our first public appearance was on May 23rd, 2008. Very cool. I love this. And because I don't know this language that they're speaking in, which one is this? Is this Slovenian? I don't know. But I did find a translation for this. The problem is, if I was one, I'd have to think about how to get rid of the office I held and every other office under it while still making sure the city gets water, hydroelectricity. Yeah, making sure infrastructure is maintained. Our power positions, our civic duty, like jury duty. Oh, bummer. I'm chairman next month. That would be great if we had like this, like what you're talking about, like sortition more instead of like elected office. I think that would be more equitable than what we have now, even if we establish something like ranked choice voting, like in the US specifically, where that allows more people to be running for office. But usually people have to have access to capital. It's a class thing, like the petty bourgeoisie, or just even being in like the bourgeois in general to even run for office in the first place. And that a lot of the time when they get there, they don't follow on any of those promises because they don't actually come from the working class. But I think that is a great idea. We would get far more like actual representation if we had like a simple random sample of people who were chosen to positions of power. Oh yeah, it is Slovenian. Okay. So the description for this video that you shared, Seventh Vixen, reads... The poet, a member of the Paris Commune, wrote the lyrics, and the music is the work of a Belgian carpenter. Although the song has a colorful past, for a while it was the anthem of the Soviet Union from its inception. It has been, above all, the first song of the workers of the whole world. Workers of the world unite. A new system is kinda a piece of piss. Federated pluralist liquid democracy, my vote. Problem is, there's literally no time to implement and benefit. Yeah. And also, like, being very pessimistic about human nature in general, or at least, like, decolonizing our minds, like trying to get rid of all of these oppressive structures, that we will actually get to a point. I don't think we'll ever get a system that is beyond human corruption. I'm not a fan of systems. Anarchists in the chat, yes, this is true to form. Yeah, I don't think there's any system that is beyond human corruption. It's very simply adaptation and coordination. It's how we did anything. The environment shapes desire, makes the person. Yeah. And people just like act accordingly. Because it's easier to do that than it is to be resisting. Very cool. I love that the choir is actually representative of workers of the world, like the working class. And institutions shape the environment. We shape institutions from culture. Yeah. And that's where a lot of our power comes from. It's withholding our labor and also that. Okay. Before we get into the reading, I did want to play this. This is one of the songs, as you mentioned, Anarcho Taco yesterday, Dog Park Dissidents. I had actually heard this song, Queer as in Fuck You, but I did not know that this was them. So this is very cool and also appropriate for Pride. Yay. But they're very queer and love how unapologetic they are. That lends itself to punk, like the anarchist lean. Also, like, I don't think we have time for this today. Maybe I'll show this next week. Where was this? It was the, what is the song? Like trans BDSM feminists, something like that. That I was like, okay, hi. I feel so bad for getting kicked out of my house. Oh, that hits home. That hits home, not hits house. Seventh Vixen, thank you for subscribing. I appreciate it. Twitch has forced me to use another browser. Quite pissed, but well. Yes, the white bourgeoisie. The cis white gay bourgeoisie. Oh, yes. See, I've heard this song, but I don't think I've ever, like, actually seen the lyrics. So just getting, like, snatches of it, being like, yeah, it's talking about being against the bourgeoisie. Amazing. Sorry, just as you're jamming out, I pause it. Could you hear that other song, Seventh Vixen, the one that you recommended? Yes. This is what Pride is. Queer applause. Not gay as in happy, but queer as in fuck you. I'm like hitting everything as I'm trying to be anti-establishment in here. To run Twitch inside a virtual machine. What? The art is so cool too. Like the visual art. Love. Oh, I love this. Just queer puppy players throwing a Molotov cocktail. That's what pride is to me. That's what pride should be to all of us, really.